Mute the mic. There it is. What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Can you hear me now? Any feedback in the comments? I don't even know what this means. Come to Brazil. Brazil is in Nashville. So hello, everyone. Welcome to yours truly live Sunday afternoon on the, what is today? 8th, 9th it is. ARC, airports, and feasts. You see this pattern. Paul pointed it out in his conversations with, what he reposted Bethel McGrew. He was talking about Mary Harrington's Substack on like the ARC is like an airport. And so we'll just kind of jump into it here. Sharing some screen here. Let's see. Yeah. Coming up here. Yeah, we'll pull this up. And here it goes. Yeah, so this was Mary Harrington's piece on Substack, which, that she has this picture of an airport and said that ARC is like an airport. It's kind of like nowhere. And I think that's really key to the point that, and I'm still talking about ARC because I went and I invested a lot into it. And so if you're tired of me talking about it, go watch somewhere else because it's what I have. It's what I have that is relevant from my experience and the process these weeks that have transpired since. It's been interesting. Paul went kind of on tour, an estuary tour in Germany and the Netherlands, and Bethel's been putting out a few her Substacks on her experience there. And it was actually reading her Substack today that kind of made me think, that's what, I would bring some more attention. But Mary Harrington, so I wanted to point to this because, let's see here. Because I myself had the exact thought as I was leaving ARC, that I felt like my experience with ARC mirrored my experience in certain ways of an airport. And so I'm going to share this here. All right. We'll do the media. Yep. Is that it? No. Here it is. Look, it's a British flag. That's about up here at Heathrow. A big city in the west is a big city in the west. Maybe there's a better story than that. And to me, it's something like Galway, Ireland, and things like that. I don't know. There's nothing exciting about this stuff for me anymore. Maybe my kids, and that's why I took that video of that London flag. So it's like, oh look, there's a British flag. Everything else just looks the same. Alright, well, I'm hungry, and I'm now through security. And so, this, I think this is the, oh, here we go. Oh, I'm using these new setups. It's not working for me. Let's go back to this. All right. So this experience that I had going to the airport, and Zach Parsons makes a good point. Estuary feels a bit like a transitional place. And I definitely felt like I couldn't grab at anything culturally at ARC. It felt very nebulous in that way. And I think Mary Harrington, and you are blending multiple cultures. And so how can, and if it's that kind of flat, and I was listening, and I'll bring this in more later, to John Vervaeke was on Rafe Kelly's podcast this week. And he brings out that idea about the smooth as opposed to beauty. And so there's this sense that there was a smoothness to it, but there was not a lot of as much character as I think there can be, or there could be, and some of that I know because I've been a part of planning events and conferencing and these types of things and been to many. I mean, there's a lot of details, and you do need to be able to herd large amounts of people. And so to do that, you have to make things simple. And it's hard to allow space for organic realities to transpire, though there was enough for estuary to happen at ARC. So I think, you know, that is real. But I mean, for estuary to happen, we had to skip some of the plenary sessions, you know, so, and go out of the designated spaces that were designed for communal connection because it was too loud to have that kind of level of intimate conversation. So, you know, and so that just, as I was reading through Bethel's Substack, throw that up here, that she released her third, Substack on ARC. I guess it was her final day 3 ARC here, and postcards from ARC day 3. Where is the ARC sailing? Final thoughts. And she ended at the same place that I ended, which was with a feast and with a meal. And so you have these images of an ARC, of an airport, and of a feast. And you know, so, you know, as she got to the end of her Substack, and, you know, I don't want to ruin too much because it's behind the paywall, but, you know, she kind of points in this direction, and it was definitely something that I experienced as well, you know, and we're both kind of coming at this from this corner, you know, our perspective, but, you know, what's interesting about it is that, you know, people are operating at different levels. You know, she had like some backstage passes and was doing a media tour herself while she was there. So she was amidst a different echelon of the experience. But there's something to the vantage of, I think, the future, because we have all been inundated with information, so much information over the last decade related to places like this, YouTube, which is where so much of the ARC platform was birthed. You know, trigonometry, the new atheism debates, Anya Hirsi Ali, Jordan Peterson, what they even are doing by capturing this. And Bethel makes some points about the kind of attempts at the clickbait nature that they're using with the thumbnails for ARC. And so we come to these places for information. And I think this is where listening again to Vervaeke talk with Rafe about relevance realization. How are things made relevant? And I want to point to the David Brooks conversation at ARC, because it created dissonance, or it created contrast. And Bethel talked about this in the estuary, digital estuary that Paul did here with participants who at ARC, which another reason I think that I am like doing this right now is because I wasn't able to participate in this event because I was working, and but I was invited and thankful to be invited. And so here, the title that Paul titled this was Nothing is More Conservative Than Eternity, the Call for a New Era of Chivalry, Jordan Hall and Bethel McGrew. And Bethel, like, she hit on the David Brooks thing, and Paul, even while he was there, he was like, man, that was, you know, one of the highlights for me. And we can talk about the political reasons for that, which are tied to this, but it's also just the fact that it was like it created contrast, because there was so much of the rah-rah, so much of the for the claps moments that you didn't get the tension. You know, I was having this conversation with somebody earlier this week about the Pangburn. Oh yes, my friend Peyton. The Pangburn series where, you know, Douglas Murray and Brett Weinstein, they moderated between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris on this European tour. And the energy that came from that was the contrast the foreground and the background of new atheism, and what is this new thing happen, being birthed right before our eyes. And so we need that contrast. So I'm glad that Ark brought that in. And I'm wondering if there could be more places for that kind of tension, for that classic steelman situation, so and then Jordan had that great line that in this, nothing is more conservative than eternity. Is eternity conserving everything? Is it everything is stopped and then conserved in a stable state? So, these are interesting questions. And again, the title of this was about the collective subconscious. So I'm listening to Paul, I'm listening to Bethel, I'm hearing Paul talk about Mary Harrington's Substack about airports, and I'm thinking, and then even in this conversation that John Vervaeke had with Rafe Kelly, and they, this term hive mind, I've heard it critiqued by Jordan Hall, and then even in Vervaeke in that conversation he mentioned the critique kind of in passing about the hive mind, and I think it's something to do with the something like Independence Day, where you have that hive alien species. That's not how humans are. So I don't know if that's the parallel of what's being drawn out of kind of the negative nature of something like the hive mind, but we talk about it here, and unfortunately I'm not creating enough. There it is. Yeah, Zach's hanging out, and it's Sunday afternoon, so this isn't a normal live stream time for this corner, but something about finding its soul. Yeah, that was Bethel was talking about, like, the conservative soul maybe feels a little lost or a little because, I mean, I don't think it's easy to lump everything in the Trump era into left, right, conservatives. But, I've mentioned before that really the only conservative in the Trump coalition, like the major Trump coalition, is JD Vance. It on some level, like, you had big tech, and you have liberals and Tulsi and leftists in RFK, and Trump's definitely not a conservative. And so, what is the conservative soul, I guess? It was a good question from Bethel. I think, she contrasted that with not the neocon voice, but, it's really, I think, more distinctly a authentic, religious voice would have to kind of maybe be something like that. And again, those were represented through Robert Barron and maybe Jonathan to a degree, but Jonathan Peugeot. Anyways, so, I gave that. This is, I guess, kind of the closing idea here, which is just that what makes this the real? What makes it human? Where do those things all come together? Where do the ideas, the people, the persons, your bodies, like, where does this all come together? How does it all come together? And I would say it comes together in communion, when we commune with one another. And what is that? Estuary is a form of that. Estuary is a layer of that. But even like Zach said earlier, Zach Parsons here in the comments, he said estuary feels a little bit like a transitional place too. But the meal, so I'll pull this up here. We'll give a little video here, I guess, to kind of illustrate this point. And we're going. All right. As Ark ended, and I was walking down the hall, the long hall of the Excel Center, I was thinking about making a video and about what just happened. I had a feeling, an overwhelming feeling. All week there had been this meal that was brewing. a meal to meet up with Teo and Peter Penrose Bach, two infamous folks in the corner, both from this great island. And today, Harris Upcycle started putting together a little bigger meal with, and he said, "Hey, y'all three want to come?" So we grafted into that meal with Paul and with another guy who attended X-Ray, Father Matthew, who I interviewed, and his wife. The Thelma crew came, and Upspring Chris was there. And as I was walking, I was overwhelmed or overcome by a feeling of blessing, of being blessed. And of joy that I had a meal with friends to finish this event. It wasn't off to a hotel by myself. It wasn't off to rush to an airport. It was to a meal with... sorry, I interrupted. So yeah, this at the end of ARC, that was the culmination for me. It was so special that I wasn't just walking back to a hotel room by myself to wait for my flight the next day, that I wasn't going to by myself anywhere. I was going to a meal with friends to finish this. Like, it felt like the right liturgy, honestly. And I know, like in Bethel's article, there were all these after parties everywhere, and there was the dark arc, the DARC, kind of the deep rightist, some of that crew that was, they were having an after party, and even like, what is that? Like, is that really a place to culminate with, in communion, in relationality, in, maybe to just not, or is it just a place to exert status and power? And so, there was just something so joyful, so real, and so true to end. And it ended in the kind of this cultural moment, because Harris, our Upcycle from, he's Cyprian, and we had some Cyprian cheese, and he hosted, and this was, there was a beauty to that. And I had friends that were coming to see me, that weren't at ARC, that we were connecting in this time and place to finish this together, that leg of the journey. And I don't, and it wasn't, I can't remember the quote. It's not about the destination. It's more about the friends you make along the way, or something like that. And Bethel's Substack really illustrated this keenly. So I want to point people to her Substack. I know Paul did today as well. And I'll throw it back up here one more time on the screen. But that was just, the ideas were an airport, an ARC, an airport, and feast. And eating fish and chips at Heathrow Airport was the furthest thing from, from a culminating point of the trip. But a meal with friends to celebrate the journey, to acknowledge the reality of why we were all there. I think that was it. That was something that made so much more sense. And so, I couldn't have made that trip without Teo's help, honestly, who was at that dinner. He didn't attend ARC, but he was a friend who helped me think about bus routes in Ireland and tickets and these things at Heathrow. And so, I think those are the things I just wanted to highlight. I wanted to bring about, reinforce what Paul's talking about, point to the fact that I was experiencing those things in real time, like the airport, and with Bethel's Substack about the feast, and just wanting to really, continue to point to meaning. Like, what is meaning? Is meaning only what is meaning in the ark? And I found some, and it was because it existed, but not maybe in just the ideas that they were putting forth. And so, I think that's continues to be the theme. And this, just as Bethel, I said her name wrong like 4 times. Bethel is putting out her final Substack, so I wanted to play along with that. And she's been a good friend since we had her on the podcast, and I know she's been in the corner for a long time, and it was fun to continue to connect with her at ARC. And so, and then just, Paul, the conversation that Paul is putting forth about, even in that line about chivalry, there's something related to a feast with chivalry. And I think even that word, I want to point to like John Hears with, Heavy Things Lightly podcast and the Tamada Supras. And there's going to be some of that pointed to at Midwest Estuary. And so as these ideas continue to, let's see, Zach Parson, contrast feasting in the Shire with Denethor's solo tomato. Yeah, that's true. And there was a lot of Tolkien. There were at least two references I heard from the stage related to these metaphors. And this is part of the re-enchantment, this is part of what's happening in this time. And that, we want these smooth, modern experiences, or that's like been the model. And, even within like my Christian experiences, and when Jordan was in that estuary as well, he mentioned something about like, it would have been great if there were like some music, people doing some kind of like, and maybe they're designated and, not just anybody, but that and allowed certain, maybe somebody was heralding or doing poetry, or somebody was playing a song on an acoustic guitar, or like in these areas that allowed certain things to just happen, certain things to bubble up. That would create more of that mixing and more of that ecology of estuary, within that space, to bring it forth life as those energies rush past one another and ideas and building. And so, I think that idea, feasting in the Shire with versus that scene in the Great White City where he's just sitting there alone atop, I forget what the steward is sitting atop and he's chomping on those tomatoes all alone, versus, like Rivendell, Rivendell, what an enchanting place. And that's where you see the idea of like the feasting together. And there's an earthiness to that reality. So thank you, Zach, for playing along today. It's been good to hear from you, man. So yeah, I want to end by just, let's see, I've got to do this because I didn't do this in the pre-show here, but let's point to some Midwest estuary. That didn't go right. Let's see here. Coming up on the search. Let's give it a go here. So we'll do a little highlight here. Present. Stop screen. This really, I've got to find a better way. And I think you can do, some of it's obviously is preparation, but the other part is the software itself being a little bit, I don't know, awkward. Let's see where this takes us.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am very excited to announce the Midwestuary, the Fellowship of the Spirit Conference in August 2025, August 24th or August 22nd through August 24th this year, 2025, here in Chicago. And registration is live. So if you are excited about this conference, go over to midwestuary.com and you will find links to purchase tickets and register for the event. No need to wait. Go right ahead. So What is this conference? Well, first we are, like, as I mentioned, it is August 22nd through August 24th. The main events will be on Friday, the 22nd, and Saturday, the 23rd. Paul Vanderklay will be preaching at Elmhurst Christian Reformed Church on Sunday morning, the 24th, and that's sort of like the unofficial end of the conference. Although we're also, there's some people who are trying to get a paintball gathering going for Thursday, the 21st. If you're especially interested in that idea, please leave a comment to the video, and I can put you in touch with the people who are trying to get that going. Where it will be at Elmhurst Christian Reformed Church. Elmhurst is a western suburb of Chicago. It's about 25 minutes south of O'Hare Airport. And if you're looking where to stay, I would recommend the Hilton Chicago / Oak Brook Suites. It is within walking distance of the church, and that is where I think most of the people from the conference will be staying. So if you're especially excited about, those sort of late night hotel bar conversations or conversations over breakfast, that would be the place to stay. But there's actually lots of hotels in the area. There's Airbnbs, there are campgrounds, and so you can sort of choose your own adventure on where you want to stay. Who will be there? The main speakers are Paul Vanderklay. Paul Vanderklay is a pastor in the Christian Reformed Church in Sacramento. He's also the host of his own YouTube channel and sort of one of the central organizing figures in this little corner of the internet and this conference. Elizabeth Oldfield, she is the host of the Sacred podcast. She's very interesting. She has sort of a cool story about intentional communal living in London and just sort of how to make faith work in this 21st century. John Vervaeke is a professor of cognitive science at the University of Toronto. He's been on my YouTube channel multiple times, and he has really interesting takes on sort of science and religion and spirituality from a philosophical and cognitive science perspective. Cale Zeldin is a teacher at a East Coast boarding school. He has his own podcast, The Underneath, and has a very interesting presence and activity on Twitter. He's also been on my channel multiple times. Jonathan Pageau is an Eastern Orthodox icon carver. He has his own channel, and he's sort of the organizer of the Symbolic World Press, which makes books and other sorts of things. He's also sort of seemingly Jordan Peterson's favorite theologian and favorite person to talk about religious subjects with. Rod Dreher is an author. He has written many books, such as The Benedict Option and others, and he is a sort of an interesting sort of religious philosophical thought leader, I would say. So these will be the main speakers at the conference. There will also be breakout sessions, which will be led by other sorts of people. I don't have full details on that at this time, but just mention that they will be great and also led by very interesting.
So that's a little bit on estuary, Midwest estuary coming up. So Ethan, what's up, man? Me and Ethan have been DMing back and forth a little bit today. From someone who's never been to ARC, it seems like the main thing it produces are digital clips to send off like airplanes, but you can share a feast even in an airport. I ate in an airport by myself on the way home, but it's more than that, but that is a big deal. I mean, that's what how do you get the messages out is here, in this space right here. So, but the embodied reality is also a key component for the people that exclusive nature of an expensive ticket and kind of, an exotic locale and whatnot. There's a reality to feeling important. And whether or not that's important or not, I don't know, but it's real. So I think that, let's see. As a part of the fringe that followed your journey to ARC, one of the most real moments as an observer was seeing the photos at the end of the conference feast with members of the TLC. Very special. Yeah, and so, this corner is the angle that Bethel in a certain way, obviously Paul, myself, and I think even like Rafe to a degree being there and Upcycle, and we're bringing a bias, we're bringing that reality, and the corner, the deepest parts of the corner is scrappy in the sense that it's, you know, kind of blue collar. It's you know, it's not elitist. It's kind of a little anti-institutional. There's some anarchy, like Christian anarchy in the water. There's some you know, like if you're trying too hard, like this guy, you know, it's kind of, you're gonna have to take a lot more time to earn trust. Um, let's see, Almighty Om. It's not the message, how it changes people, finding meaning, value, purpose. You know, in my first video on to go to ARC, I kind of did this essay, this dramatic reading with like some background music and stuff. That was a wee bit too loud, but it, you know, I said the vision, the value, and the meaning maybe, or purpose. I can't remember. Yeah, like part of the value is not just a person, one person. There was an element of an individual on a pilgrimage. There was an element, but there's, what was the value? The value for me was getting to meet people there, but there was also a value for you, which was in the promise to take you with me in that way and to share in a part that we can, with these new technologies, do certain things that were not able to be done even 10 years ago easily, like with one guy and a selfie stick and a cell phone. So, you know, and I think that's something that should probably be considered in what this, you know, even for you all, some of y'all are able to come to the Midwest Estuary in Chicago. Like, how can it be more than just for yourself? But maybe it does need to be kind of like your first pilgrimage to making the digital more real, which is a big part of this. You know, I said early on in my YouTube journey that when I had a speed rando with Paul, I never did an official, like full on rando with him. I did have him on my show, but he said, or I told him, you know, that first rando was like beginning to touch something that had only existed in my mind for like 7 years. And so I truly believe that with the phenomenon of what happens on YouTube and the phenomenon of what happens with these giant ideas for the autodidact or for the, you know, like non-professional person related to intellectual endeavors, how do we make sense of this? And this is through the collective subconscious and through the collective intelligences of the group. And that's what, you know, why I kind of felt like coming on today was because what was Paul and Mary Harrington and Bethel and, you know, there were these related realities that were picked up in our relevance realization through contrast and through the network and the foreground and the background of the network of things that were happening. And I think I just want to encourage everyone here that this is the sense making and that I'm trying to do, you know, and then to be like, there's also this part is like, well, I want people to know, you know, I had the same ideas as these wonderful people, like as it was happening. So there's also just like I don't know if it's a prideful or a, hey, me too, you know, like I'm a try hard over here. Hey. So it's like, to be recognized for your ideas, I guess. And one of the things that I had to come to grips with in this endeavor was like, you know, for your voice to be heard in this space. I mean, it's a vast ocean of reality, the digital waters of social media and YouTube. Like no one's gonna, I mean, maybe there is a time where other people will promote things for you, but like, you know, part of this, you know, to try to like meaning for me is for there to be whatever is felt like legitimacy through here, is the creating a voice and a building something that is recognizable, that can be seen, you know, the field of dreams, if you build it, they will come. And so here we are. We've got like, you know, 10 people here on YouTube and another 20 in Twitter watching. And so it's like, here we are. And hopefully these things are sparking ideas that will come around in other conversations, and like people here that are connected to estuaries already will take these ideas that Paul brings forward, or maybe even little Christian Baxter brings forward, and those go into an estuary conversation, and they continue to help us to make sense as we go into these ecological human meetings, and then we flow back into our life and our days, and with the vast amount of information, that the onslaught that we take in, making sense, and there's so many strange things now happening even with AI that I think that are going to affect this even more greatly. And I have some really exciting conversations coming up. I've got a conversation with a guy who is out in Silicon Valley trying to figure out the relationship between embodied realities and AI. And then I've got coming out either tomorrow or the next day is probably the youngest person that was at ARC. I had her on the podcast. Her preview already up in my members only section on the channel. And then I've got, who else this week? Oh, somebody that was a really key factor for, what's up, Chad? A really key factor for the conferencing that I attended. He'll be on later this week. He was maybe wasn't in Paul's estuary conversation yesterday, or Friday. Let's see. The Almighty Om, being remembered for your ideas. I think most great thinkers, they wrote for future generations. Yeah, so who knows how these things are going to last, and if this is actually part of actually building something institutional, this corner of the internet and all these ramblings that may live on for many years in digital nature, it's hard to know. Ethan says, as a Wisconsin native, I'm stoked to meet and feast with some of y'all at the Midwest Estuary. Yeah, man, come on. And look forward to talking more with. And then Zach Parsons, Daddy's Home. I don't know what is that for about Chad? Yeah. And so, these are things. I don't know if anyone wants to talk for 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I've got a little bit of time before I have to drive tonight. So we'll punch it in here. I got a little bit of ranty there at the end. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to come on, but we got a little bit of time. We can hang out for a few minutes. Oh, try to remember to do this. Where is it at? Boom. Come on in, the water's fine. We got some conversation over in the chat. Yeah, but so I think that's, as I was talking about with the appreciated, the Almighty Om, talking about being remembered. And I guess I missed this comment up here. It said, they are one, meaning, value, what we treasure, Schnatzen in German, that is faith. Oh, we got somebody. What's up, Zach? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you good.
I'm being very safe, driving, and
No
StreamYarding.
judgment.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, no judgment.
Yeah, well, I resonated with a lot of what you shared from your estuary trip, and I love that you're continuing to process it like with us here in this digital form. But what all of us digital people are wondering is, are you going to start your own estuary in Arkansas? That's what we want to know.
So, I had Luke Freeman on last week on my podcast, and he's another guy from Arkansas over in Northwest Arkansas, and he's really trying to tip the scales on if he's wanting to try to start one up there, which is still about 4 hours away from me.
Okay.
So I am in the middle of I do this, I work my day job, and I'm kind of helping get a church plant off the ground. And so that's about what I feel like I can squeeze into my life.
Well, let me challenge you. Challenge is not the right word, but let me lean into that, because the whole church plant thing. I mean, look at all the different ways that people have a local estuary.
Yeah.
Like how Paul has his that has kind of replaced Sunday school,
Yep.
at his church. So it's almost like a ministry of his church. I don't even know if you would call it that or not, but could an estuary be a part of this church plant where you're more, meaningfully engaging people to, to be able to respond? I'm assuming what you've got going on right now has services and, is it music and preaching and small groups, or am I assuming too much?
We haven't got to the small group level other than just like our kind of core leadership. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. In considering it, and it will probably, if there's a natural place for that to kind of land, like you're talking about, as things continue to formalize, this is not like your average startup, like we got the entrepreneur like thing. It's a little bit more organic in how it's coming forth, but I could see there being that making sense at some point, like, well, what do we do about that space if it's Sunday school or something? That would be a really good time to drop that idea in as a layer for community and for meaningful connection, like you're saying. So I agree. Yeah.
Well, and
But I don't have it on. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the experience that we've had in Evansville, Indiana, with our estuary group. So I think we started in May of 24, so we're not even quite a year into it. But we're meeting like every week, and so it has that sort of temporariness that can be great for somebody who's new to jump into, and it's like, hey, this estuary, the makeup of this estuary is happening right now with these people. And you don't need a lot of prior experience and able to jump in and participate deeply. But then what do you do when someone has been coming for months and months and months? There's almost like this yearning that some of us are feeling of like, do we create a church of estuary? And I know Paul's riffed on this before, like estuary is not a church. It can't replace your church. It shouldn't replace your church. But what we get into at estuary starts to develop this, these relationships. And then all of a sudden you're like really wanting it to have something more meat on it that turns into something like communion, regular communion, like a church.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the pattern. I think that points to just how real that pattern is. That it's like something that we can't, like, it goes all the way down. And so with that, where there's a deeper level of communion, and I would say fractally that goes into something, then into that religious play, like not directly after what you're talking about. What you're talking about is like, and you brought up the idea of potluck, and feast or something. And I mean, it would be interesting to maybe look at doing a quarterly tomatas, like supras that John here does, and attaching that on as like another layer, of like, we're going to really put some collective money behind this for a nice meal. And the meal is actually going to have a type of structure to it that allows for, I don't know, this formality probably that is, would take meaning to another level. Like, because if you just stay in the informalness of estuary, that yearning's probably, that itch isn't probably going to get scratched if you can't kind of elevate.
Sure.
So.
Well, it's even almost like Lent, like Lent is this season where everything gets, elevated. It's not that people, Christians aren't expected to uphold whatever happens at Lent, year round. But then you do sort of designate this season of time, or you could look at Ramadan as well. This is taking whatever is normal and expected and is good, and saying, all right, let's elevate it. Let's make it special. Let's bring it a little deeper. Let's bring it a little closer. And people rise to the occasion for it.
Yeah, I think that is that's that pattern, and the like having holy seasons where we put emphasis on things that allow it to raise up in our consciousness and in our lives and in our families. And, it, like you said, there's a base layer of religious morality that we should be trying to, and practice that we're trying to do. But again, like the contours are even what make something even more beautiful. Like Vervaeke talks about the smoothness and the flatness of certain realities that even in how we are perceived beauty in this world now with Botox and plastic surgery, whatever. But it's like that actually takes away from the contours of reality, and things like feasting and fasting help create those contours as well.
Yeah.
The,
Well, I was teasing it a little earlier, but Papa Peterson is coming to Evansville, Indiana tonight.
dude,
He's in Evansville tonight.
What's he doing?
So he's speaking. Somehow we made it on his tour. He was in Toronto a couple days ago, and then he comes to Evansville. So yeah, this will probably be the first and last time he's in my community. And so our estuary groups are kind of coming together. So we're having our own version of an elevated experience.
Yeah.
We'll do a little debrief session tonight after our lives are transformed, according to the tour title.
Oh goodness. So so he must be done wrestling, and he's now been touched by the angel, and now his hip has been transformed. So y'all's hips are going to be transformed. I think.
Nice.
But even that though is really nice, that it's not a bunch of individuals going to see Peterson and then disperse into individual land. There's a layer now to this experience that allows it to land and create actually more meaning for the actual experience.
I hope so. We do use the Meetup platform at the recommendation of Paul and John Von Donk and some of the people that have estuary, groups around the world. And so then we posted this debrief session within Meetup as well. So it'll hit the people who are already in our estuary network, and then some other people maybe who are just happen to be on the platform in our community. And I think the hope is, if there are people that aren't currently connected to our estuary, but are connected to Jordan Peterson, hopefully this helps people to find the others.
Yep.
Like we're the others, or maybe somebody else is the others. Maybe there's a whole other cult of Jordan Peterson that I'm completely unaware of, that I'll we'll meet each other tonight.
I'm pretty sure in the chat, Ethan Coffee, I don't know how to say his last name. He's been hanging out in the chat, but he showed up on Paul's live stream Friday, and I don't think he's participated in much at all, but I don't know how long. But again, it's always surprising. He's like, oh man, I think I found something here on the internet, that's real, that seems like it fits something that's happened, in his life. And so we're going to be trying to connect on a conversation for that. But but
Awesome.
it's but the point on that is that even 6, 7, 8 years past this phenomenon, there are still people that are chewing on these things that are alone in their head, like you said. And so I think that's so good, Zach.
Well, that's what I got going tonight. Maybe you and I can catch up again and debrief.
We should.
I could jump on a live stream if nothing else. Are you still traveling to Nashville, or?
Yeah, I'm about to leave in a few minutes.
To Nashville?
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, we that's only 2.5 hours from me, so we gotta make this happen. I'm sure I can figure it out on one of your trips here.
All right, man. It was good to see you, Zach.
All right, you too, man. See ya.
Well, links up, but I probably need to get going. But I've got just a few more minutes if someone wants to pop in, if anything was going on. If you just want to say hi, if you just there's anything that was salient to you, come on in. We can chat for a few minutes. But let's see. Ethan says, my fiance is traveling healthcare. We're in Washington State for the rest of the month. Alaska for 3 months. Headed back to Wisconsin to settle down. Chad's reached out in Wisconsin. Brian of College Station says Maestros pizza still feels pretty casual. Yeah, well, everything's gonna make sure you stock up on them Zins before you go. Lord, forgive me for I am a Zinner. We're gonna get a little hang from Mr. Chad. What's up, brother?
Heading over to Aldi to get some stuff for the week, some ciabatta buns for sandwiches, some ham, some bagels, some cream cheese, and then I broke my shower head this morning accidentally, so I got to head over to Farm & Fleet, grab a new shower head, and then call it a day and go back home and spend some time with the wife and child.
That's right, man. Well, how is the dadding going?
I think it's actually going really, really, really great.
Good.
And I have my own moments of personal calamity inside of that actuality. So, yeah, I think it's going really well. I just have difficulties. So.
You're the only person, Chad. You're the only one that happens to, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's only you.
Well, it's the only time it's ever happened to me, actually. These particular times. So, because I've never been a dad before.
Well, I'm just saying that you are now in the fraternity of where you feel like you can do a million things and then you feel like you collapse and don't know if you can go on.
Yeah. Such is life.
Dude, are you still getting pumped about Midwestuary?
Yeah, I'm always a little pumped about that, especially since a couple people have started contributing on the artistic side of it, which has been encouraging for me because I can't do it all, and so the more I do, the less I'm excited about it. Because it feels like something that I have to carry all by myself, and that isn't what I wanted it to be initially. So the more people like pitch in, regardless of what they think quality is, I'm all for it. Like if you want to draw a picture with crayons and take a picture of it and post it for a commercial, I'm happy to post that. Like I want anything other than my own work. You know what I mean?
I hear you, dude.
Yeah. But other than that, I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited on how it unfolds and seeing everybody. Like that's always the best part is spending time with the friends that you've made over the interwebs, and then the other part is cool where we get to listen to these guys. Have fellowship amongst them, so we get a little bit of a sneak peek into that, which is cool. But yeah, it should be great.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I'm interested to see if there's people that aren't corner people that latch on to Peugeot or Vervaeke and whoever else that are paid. If people will get hooked into the conference that aren't already like. I don't know. Is there going to be a little bit more like coordinated promotion coming up? I know we're kind of probably an arc to get through.
I really hope so, because I can't be the only channel that's promoting stuff.
I did a big commercial on this stream.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so we're trying to brainstorm a little bit on the promotional end of it. I think that Rod Dreher will draw in a lot of people who aren't. And who have no idea what the corner is, and Rod Dreher will probably do that more than anybody else will. That'd be my guess.
Because of his giant blog from back in the day, his books.
Yes, and just like his popularity and with his books and whatnot. So he's probably the actual biggest. If you want to say something like the biggest name there, it's probably Rod Dreher.
It's so interesting because he's kind of like. Not like in the corner, he's not the main staple,
right?
But he definitely it does go back for like within the lore within Paul's relationship to Peterson was mainly through
Yes.
Drew. Like that was what like it's like a big that's kind of deep in the corner there. So it's pretty
It's
cool.
really interesting, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like if it wasn't for Rod Dreher, so none of this would exist. Thanks, Rod. Now we're all stuck in the hinterlands of the internet due to you. Thanks, guy.
Yeah, not the Benedictine option yet at
Right.
least.
So,
Yeah, I'm excited, and I've done Symbolic World and Arc, and so this will be my first kind of corner like PVK, and there's been
yeah.
how many like official have there been now? Chino, Thunder Bay, I guess he did his little one up in this past year in Connecticut, and then
Yeah.
there was Olympia.
Well, I think that none of them are actually official, which I think is interesting. So I think that they're official to those that know, right? But then there's no actual organization, which is other than Estuary. But Estuary itself doesn't host anything like that. So we basically are we ask them for help, and we'd like to promote them and invite them out to come and do their thing so that we can help Estuary grow. So it's really an interesting beast. But yeah, so it was Thunder Bay. So there was a Thunder Bay that was supposed to happen in 2020, and that got
COVID.
kiboshed.
Yeah.
Yes, and then when that I think the next year, 2 years later, the first Thunder Bay event came off. That was with Peugeot and Vervaeke, and then a guy named Richard, I think. And Catherine and her husband and children hosted that over at an Abbey there. And then there was one of the other first events was actually in Chicago with
That's right.
Sam Tiedemann hosted an event and brought Aaron Wren and Parker Pences and Bethel McGrew. And that was really small and really great. And Paul Vanderklay was there too. I was at that one, and I hung out with Dave Williams and had dinner with Hank, with my wife and Hank, and so that was cool. And then Chino, and then the Northwestuary, and then the German festivals. There's two of those. And then there was a Catholic festival in like DC, which I think was kind of adjacent. And then
that was with More Christ, right? With Marcus.
Yeah, and then the Peterson Sphere guys put together a conference. Ted and Father Eric
in Arkansas,
and in Arkansas they did like a poetry one with damn it, what's his name? Dr. Jim. Yeah. And yeah, so there's always, and I like this. So I like that there's different scale ones. And I think Grim Grizz and the fellas are trying to work on something that's more kind of like smaller, traveling at like state parks and campgrounds, throughout the year, which I think is a really good idea, because I think those actually might end up becoming kind of the conferences that create the most strength. And then like the bigger ones is what creates better outreach.
Yeah.
So you need both of them.
Concentration, there's like what I think about is, even with like YouTube channel, like I'm interested in a highly concentrated engagement versus massive growth it's within that. I think I do believe that like the at some point, some things like that you can, but if you kind of like take off, and I kind of wonder around Paul, which was kind of my thoughts when I did that little Estuary highlight video where I was riffing off my conversation with Byrne about Paul, is like he had like in a certain way, like this thing's been constant, like a highly densely concentrated thing underneath him, digitally, that over time, like that energy will do something at a certain point. And so I
Yeah, well,
I think this is part of that. But I think to your point
yeah.
though, like the heart and the spirit underneath something, that creates like a through line of strength and like the quote unquote the real ones, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's the spirit of the commons. I think what Jordan Hall is talking about. It's about that particular spirit is that gives it a great the relational aspect of it is where all the strength is actually coming from.
yes.
And so, like, even I mean, we've seen this over the last several years now. Even when things kind of seem like they should bust apart and kind of fray and get nasty, and just everybody says "f off," I don't want anything to do. It doesn't happen. Like they still stick together in an odd way. It takes different shape, but they stay together. So it's interesting because nobody's keeping us together, and so it's I think it's probably I think a good part of it is it's the good part it's the positive aspect of addiction, let's say,
Hmm.
that draws us together, which is something like connection. I think that's what
Codependence.
well, it's connection, right? And
Yeah.
so like that's why I mean it's something like in families, I think it's kind of like that too, right? It's like
Yep.
well, I could just say F off and leave, but I can't. And that's what draws you together. So it's something deeper, and perhaps it's love,
Perhaps
So yeah, it's powerful.
it is, man.
And you guys have helped me out all throughout these years. These last few years have really helped me to work through some of my own stuff, and then in turn, I get to try to help serve in the ways that I can, and I get to have fun doing it in a playful way, and
That's
and
true.
meet some interesting folks along the way, and kind of get to experiment a little bit with hierarchy and see how that, to see how much of hierarchy and status is a myth, and how much of it is real and what it isn't, because that's interesting too.
Yep.
So all that's fun.
It is, and I think that's meaning making, I think, and I'm Luke, who had on the podcast this week, he just released like 2 3-person conversations on his channel. And like I really do see that as like people being encouraged to play, like even if it doesn't do something, you're taking the steps that maybe it doesn't like do as much digitally, but in your real life it reinforces something, or vice versa.
Right.
And that is actually not just there was, I think for me at least, this pattern of I've got to speak, I've got to talk, I've got to think and in relationship to the people. But then like, how do you keep doing that? Is that you then, I think, have to get in this zone. And you and I have talked about this before, but of the play. And that, I just like changed my whole setup here, or not changed, but I worked on it today for the first time in a long time. And that's like, what is that? Is it just for the clicks? It's like, this is about like play. I'm playing.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah. There's a lot of aspects to it, and I gotta get going because Fleet
I
Farm
do
might
too.
close at 6. But yeah, part of it is the digital tools and the tools that we're using, the hardware and the software, is a big part of it actually. And that's part of the play. So it's interesting. It's all woven together in a really strange way, and we get to kind of experiment and do show and tell, and then like actually go head to head on some real topics and stuff. So yeah,
Awesome, dude.
it's all good.
Thanks
Have a
for
safe
hanging out.
drive.
All right, man. Appreciate
right.
it. All right, guys. Well, there's still some people watching, but the chat has gone chatless. So we're gonna shut this thing down. I appreciate everyone hanging out today, and y'all have a good week. This is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to Yours Truly, a place we go to think out loud.